Hi there, welcome along to Transfer Talk. It's been a record-breaking window, and with 7 days to go, we look set for even more money to be spent. Alexander Isak is still a Newcastle player. Will he still be there next week? And the week is starting quickly. Arsenal are in the market for a defender, as Bayer Leverkusen's Piero Hincapie emerges as a top target. Gary Neville calls on Manchester United to sign a midfielder, but they could also bring in a new goalkeeper. We'll hear from United's former captain in just a moment. After missing out on Piero Hincapie, Tottenham and Thomas Frank are actively searching for alternatives. And Chelsea have a list of players that they have to sell before they can bring in new ones. Will Christopher Nkunku leave Stamford Bridge? And a very good afternoon to you wherever you're watching us on this bank holiday Monday. To European football expert Kevin Hatchard and, of course, to Mark McAdam. We start, though, with developments at Arsenal this lunchtime. They are also exploring a deal to sign Bayer Leverkusen defender Piero Hincapie, despite spending plenty of money already in this transfer window. Although Arsenal's focus remains on departures, they're working to be in a position to act on the left-sided centre-back. Mark, can you fill us in on all the details? Because this broke in the last hour or so.
Yeah, this could be another significant signing for Mikel Arteta over the course of this window. Arsenal fans saying, defender? What, another one? He loves signing defenders, although they're obviously in a much healthier position with regards to strikers, wingers, attack-minded midfielders. So actually, the Arsenal fans will be a little bit more relaxed when money is being spent in this situation. And again, it could be significant investment as well, because Sky Germany are reporting the player, who's 23 years old at Leverkusen, has a release clause of 60 million euros, which is around 52 million pounds. So it's obviously going to be a sizable deal to get done. Doesn't mean that's what Arsenal are going to pay, but that's the starting point really for any conversation. Well, you might want to pay 30 or 40, but actually his release clause is 60 million euros. So therefore, we're going to want to get as close to that as possible. The thing that is currently on Arsenal's side is the fact the player has made it quite clear that he wants to join a Premier League club, and Arsenal is his destination of choice. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on. We know that Arsenal are in the market for left-sided central defenders, of which he is one. He brings versatility as well, but absolutely a player that Arsenal are targeting on this Monday morning with, a week to go.
Kevin, how good is he? And would you be surprised if Bayer Leverkusen let him go, considering the number of players that Erik ten Hag has seen depart the football club this summer?
Well, they don't have much choice if somebody does match that release clause. I know Mark's saying about an element of negotiation, but actually, if you look at what he's achieved already and the amount of experience he has, I think Leverkusen are justified in sticking to that release clause if they do, because this is a player that was a key part of Xabi Alonso's team in terms of winning the double in Germany. He can play centre-back, but he can also play left-back, and what he often does is he plays both, because if you look at the way that Xabi Alonso's teams tended to work, what you'd have is that Hincapie would come in from that left-hand side and you'd see Jeremy Frimpong fly up that side. Hincapie would lock down the left while Alex Grimaldo moved into midfield. So he's very tactically aware, he's a very smart player, super aggressive as well. I think he could deal with the physicality of the Premier League. I think it's an excellent signing, and this is a real market opportunity for Premier League clubs.
Are you surprised that Arsenal would be looking to sign him in this transfer window, considering what they've done over the last few transfer windows, building so much depth in that squad when it comes to every area of the pitch? If Ben White's injured, Timber comes in. If Miles Lewis-Skelly's not playing, you've got Calafiori there, and you've got the two centre-backs there. Christian Mosquera's come in this summer. But as you say, does this represent a market opportunity that a club like Arsenal simply can't turn down?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And what knocked them over last season? Injuries. We've already seen Ødegaard had a knock at the weekend, Saka had a knock at the weekend. Obviously, that's in an attacking sense. But you need that depth in all areas. What Hincapie does is he covers two positions. We know Mikel Arteta loves that. And because of that tactical nous that he has, and he's worked under Xabi Alonso, I think he'd be able to adapt quickly to the kind of football that Arteta wants to play. So I can absolutely understand why Arsenal will go for him. I can understand why a lot of Premier League clubs might be interested, to be honest.
And there's been reports that Spurs have an interest in signing the player. Mark, would you be surprised if Arsenal bring in another defender this summer? Clearly, there may be a need to move some of the other defenders on if they're to try to get this deal done.
Would it surprise me? No. I think Kevin touched upon it there. The need for strength in depth is key, particularly with the pace that the Premier League and the intensity is played at. These managers want depth in their squad. They want players that can rotate. They want to think about going to the latter stages of the cup competitions. The Champions League, in its extended format, now has 8 matches as a minimum in the group stages. It could be 12, 14, 16, depending on how far you progress in the competition. On top of the Premier League, the League Cup and the FA Cup, you know, even a squad player is probably going to start 20, 25 games a season, based on a club like Arsenal that are going to play between 55 and 60 games if their season goes to plan. So you do need quality. He fits the profile of what Arsenal like to do. They like those players that are between the age of sort of 20 and 24, where they can mould, develop, improve, and then they still have that high resale value. And James, you rightly touched upon potential outgoings at Arsenal. There will be a number. They've got their kind of business done in the right way. The clubs that are run sensibly and effectively like to sign the players they want, get the targets in through the door, and then use the latter stages of the window to shift players on. You know, there's talk about Gabriel Jesus, Alexander Zinchenko, Kiwior, Reece Nelson potentially to Fulham as well. So there is going to be some money generated. And market opportunity is another word you use, which I feel like is probably something that a lot of those clubs in the higher echelons of the Premier League like to use as well. Is this the right player for the right price? Because if it is, then we'll seize that opportunity and we can do that. And it very much feels like Arsenal are in that position at the moment.
I think there's an important point about his development as well, because if you look at him, when he came in to Bayer Leverkusen, they took a bit of a punt on him to some extent because they've been so impressed with him at international level, they thought we've got to move because other clubs are going to get him. So they brought him in. Was he the finished article? Absolutely not. He was raw, he would make mistakes, he would give away penalties, he'd get sent off. But actually, he's really tidied up his game. Just another point, after the game against Hoffenheim at the weekend, which Leverkusen lost, he was in tears, which suggests to me he felt that could be his final game for Leverkusen.
Would he fit into Arsenal's starting 11, do you think, straight away? And if he doesn't, would this be a project that appeals to him? Because his last 4 seasons in the Bundesliga, he's been a regular starter for a side that has won the Bundesliga and came so close to winning the Europa League as well.
I think Mark's point about squad strength is a really good one, and the fact that you've got 8 Champions League games minimum, and because he can cover left-back and centre-back, then I think he would back himself to do that. I don't think he'd necessarily be looking at Gabriel and Saliba. They're probably the best centre-back pairing in the world. I think he'd be looking at that left-hand side because Lewis Skelly might end up playing in midfield in the long run. And I think he'd back himself to get in ahead of Calafiori in the long run, maybe. Again, like Calafiori, versatile. I think he'd back himself to be a big part of what Arsenal can do this season.
OK, we wait to see what happens with Arsenal's signing of Piero Hincapie. Very early days, we wait to see what happens there. Now, to a really interesting developing story. Crystal Palace are one of several Premier League clubs who have asked about Conor Gallagher's situation at Atletico Madrid. Atletico are happy with the midfielder and would have no interest in loaning him out. The Spanish club have given no encouragement to a sale either at this point, and so it is most likely at this stage that Gallagher stays. He only signed for Atletico in a deal worth £36 million last summer. Palace looking for additions in this transfer window to replace Iber Eze's role at number 10. They've already been speaking about Oliver Glasner wanting to sign at least 2 players. That will now be 3 players. Now Eze's gone. They've been close to doing a deal with Leicester for Bilal Al-Khanous for some time, whilst the likes of Christos Solis is also a player of interest. Kev, talking about Conor Gallagher, it seems like he's done really well at Atletico Madrid. So can you understand there being a possibility of any deal being done here?
I don't think it's something Atletico would be falling over themselves to do. Absolutely, the loan thing makes no sense because even though they've started the season badly, this is an ambitious club that wants to get as close to Barcelona and Real Madrid as they can. They've spent a lot of money in the last couple of summers. They've been tooling up for a push for Europe as well. And Conor Gallagher is exactly the type of guy that Diego Simeone loves to work with. Rodrigo de Paul has gone to Inter Miami, so that kind of really aggressive kind of energy guy in midfield, they need more than ever. So it doesn't really make sense. So unless he was going to push it, and he played at the weekend, so unless he was going to really push it, can't see why this would happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. He started the first game of the season, came off at half-time, but played 22 minutes at the weekend. Whether or not this deal is possible or not, we wait to see. But this is the sort of signing which would really appease Oliver Glasner at a time where Crystal Palace have done brilliantly over the course of the last 18 months, but it could potentially fall apart if they're not getting these recruits through the door between now and Monday.
It's crucial. You look at what Oliver Glasner has done at Crystal Palace, particularly over the last 3 months, and why wouldn't you be giving him everything you possibly could to say, like, we want you to go to that next level again? And that means more players, more investment. The Conor Gallagher thing sort of almost ticks all those boxes. You know, does he understand the league? Yes. Would he be willing to come back potentially to a country of his birth? Yes. Is there any gamble on a transfer like that? Absolutely not. He started 20 La Liga games last season, so whilst he was heavily involved with that Atleti squad, he wasn't a guaranteed starter week in, week out. Maybe he's not settled in the country, maybe he feels like this is an opportunity, or maybe Crystal Palace are looking at it thinking, right, where is the value for money? Where are the opportunities that we can go and seize in Europe for players that want to come and play for Crystal Palace? Of course, he had a very successful loan spell there before, so there is that connection with the player, the fan base and the football club, and maybe they've seen an opportunity and gone, well, let's just ask the question, because with a week to go, you're running out of time and you need to start getting bodies through the door. So it'll be interesting to see how that one develops. And like you rightly say, you know, this is a huge 7 days for Steve Parish and Crystal Palace. You know, they don't want this to be a season where they fall away from the standards that they've set and what they've achieved, because this is where you should be strengthening. And that's what Sir Alex Ferguson always said, you know, strengthen from a position of strength. And it certainly feels like, based on their recent form, this is the time to improve that Palace side. But it feels like it's heading in the other direction. Good people running the club, exceptional club that's been through a real turbulent summer with the European football decision. But now that that's behind them, they need to back the manager and need to start to build players. Because again, like we said 5 minutes ago, when you've got all those games in Europe, that can have a massive effect on your Premier League form. And that's where you need strength in depth.
And there's a real pattern already with Glasner. If you look at his time at Wolfsburg, he was quite public, quite open about the fact that he felt the squad wasn't being strengthened in the way that he saw fit. Eintracht Frankfurt, exactly the same. He was quite happy to use the media to say, I don't feel this squad is going the way I want it to go. We're starting to see that again. This is a guy who's ambitious, he's driven, he sets standards. He wants those standards to be met. If they're not, what happens then?
So Conor Gallagher of interest to Crystal Palace. He was their player of the season back in 2022, so that'd be a very popular signing if he was to return to Selhurst Park. With a week to go, it looks like Manchester United could also be busy. They have players to sell and positions to fill. Yesterday, they drew 1-1 away at Fulham. And after the game, Gary Neville said the club must buy a midfielder before the transfer window closes.
There's a couple of things in the first half. I think that the goalkeeper still looking a little shaky or very shaky on those crosses from corners, which can't continue because it just, that anxiety builds. I've said it before. And then in central midfield, I think United have to do a piece of business now, because I would have liked to have thought that Mainu could step up and be that person. But it's quite clear that at this moment in time, Ruben Amorim's not having him. I mean, he starts with Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes. He then puts Mason Mount back in there, and then he brings Ugarte on in front of him, which tells you he's almost like fourth choice, really. And that means that they are going to need to, I think, get something sorted, because it's going to be a problem. The two in there, you know, really is sort of does get exposed when that front three are just a little bit more higher, and that back five sometimes get pushed back a bit. Those gaps, those acres of space seem to open up, and I thought United got cut through quite a few times in there in the second half, and I think Bruno Fernandes is part of that in there, and he's going to have to, you know, he's have to sort it out.
So last week, Gary Neville said that Manchester United need to sign a goalkeeper. Yesterday, he says they need to sign a midfielder. Mark, given the money spent already in this window, is it possible for United to go after a midfielder?
Manchester United have spent over £200 million so far in this summer, which is quite significant when Sir Jim Radcliffe spent most of last season trying to shave costs, make staff redundant, try and make the operation a lot more streamlined, because there was a lot of staff there, so they're trying to be creative and clever with what they do, but they have spent significantly in revitalising that front three, new faces at the top end of the pitch. But now, it's funny, Gary Neville saying last week, need to sign a goalkeeper. Now he's saying, I need to sign a midfielder. It feels like they're the two areas of concern for Manchester United. Goalkeeper, a six, someone who can bring energy and legs to that United midfield, which is going to be key. They have to be conscious of PSR, Manchester United, despite being one of those sides that turn over significant sums of money, they still have to respect the rules, and there has been a lot of spending there. Outgoings are going to be key between now and Monday, depending on how much they can generate there. But you'd imagine they will still be in the market to sign players, but they're going to have to be creative financially. Maybe a loan with an obligation might be something they look at. But yeah, definitely two positions of concern for Ruben Amorim.
And Carlos Baleba feels like a slightly too expensive deal to do for Manchester United. He was taken off at half-time in Brighton's game against Everton yesterday, but Fabian Hertzler said it was tactical, nothing to do with injury, nothing to do with any speculation around Manchester United. Kevin, another player who's emerged, Angelo Stiller from Stuttgart. He's a player of interest. There's not been any club-to-club contact, but would that be a good fit when you know what United are looking for in a midfielder?
I don't think so, actually. I really like him. He's great passer of the ball, sets the tempo of a game, can control a game, but actually has a minder at Stuttgart in Atakan Karatsor. He does all the dirty work, he does all the challenges, and Stiller can just get on with it and set the tempo. Him alongside Bruno Fernandes, I don't think is that right fit in midfield. The other thing as well is that financially, it's not a deal Stuttgart want to do. And they've dug their heels in with Nick Voltemade, not let him go to Bayern. They're not going to be bullied about this either. So it just financially, in terms of fit, it doesn't really feel like a deal I could see United doing at this stage.
OK, we wait to see what they do in terms of midfielders. In terms of goalkeepers, Gary Neville clear that United need to sign one. Altay Bayindir starting in goal once again, despite the fact Andre Onana was fit, he was on the bench. Where do we stand in terms of United signing a goalkeeper in this window?
Well, the player that they're targeting, Saint-Lemens, was not involved in the Royal Antwerp squad this weekend. It was their decision to remove the goalkeeper because of speculation surrounding his future. Talks continue with Manchester United over a deal for the 23-year-old. The deal on the table looks to be around £17.3 million. So, again, more investment from Manchester United. What's currently being discussed at the moment is the structure of the finance and the payment terms. So you'd imagine this one is going to progress over the course of this week. Then Manchester United get a new goalkeeper. Then they've got the question about what do they do with Andre Onana moving forward. Does he want to sit on the bench for the next 6 to 12 months? So, yeah, big questions about what happens next at Manchester United. But one of the positions that Gary Neville has cried out for, they're going to get a really talented young international goalkeeper, potentially, that could come in and improve Manchester United's goalkeeping department.
Mark says he's a talented young goalkeeper. Is he good enough or ready enough to come in and be United's number one?
I think there are question marks coming into that kind of environment because he's very calm, the mentality is good. Spoken to goalkeeping coaches about him, and he's been seen as a rising star in Belgian football for quite a while, but he was at Club Brugge and he couldn't get past him on Mignolet. He's been excellent for Club Brugge, a former Liverpool goalkeeper. So he went to Antwerp. If you look at his numbers last season, they were excellent. If you look at something called post-shot XG differential, it's basically how many shots is he saving that the data wouldn't expect him to save, and it was very, very high. Antwerp had one of the best defensive records in Belgium last season. So all of that stuff's great. But it's a huge leap to then suddenly be the number one at Manchester United. But one really interesting thing, when Ruben Amorim was at Sporting were very interested in Lamens then and were tracking him then. So there's obviously a like there that's been there for quite some time.
Just educate me on this Monday morning. Post-shot XG.
So basically, you have a plus or a minus, a post-shot XG differential. It's basically how many shots or how many goals are going in that the data either expects it to or not. So if you've got plus 14.5, which he had, basically the club could have conceded 14 more goals if he wasn't in goal, effectively.
There you go.
And James Trafford overperformed his by 12 last season with Burnley, which is hence why they got themselves back into the Premier League. Anyway, more on that shortly. Coming up after the break, we'll talk Chelsea and Crystal Palace. Can they afford to let Mark Guehi leave the club this summer, the week after Roberto Eze left for Arsenal? Don't go anywhere. Hi there, welcome back. Chelsea could dominate this final week of the market. They also have to sell before they can buy, though. Market looks like two of their players are close to joining Borussia Dortmund. What can you tell us?
Yes, there's a few potential outs at Chelsea that we're expecting between now and the end of the window. We know that they have this business plan with UEFA where they have to make sure that their player sales are greater than their player purchases, and that means they do need to shift players on. And I think there'll be a few clubs circling over the course of the next week or so saying, well, we know you need to sell players, particularly if you want to go and buy players, which you do still want to do in this window. So therefore, these are the terms. Christopher Nkunku, Bayern Munich tried to get him on loan, but that attempt failed. We know that RB Leipzig are currently in talks with Chelsea over a potential deal. They value the player at 50 million euros. So again, another significant outlay. He has 4 years left on his Chelsea deal. We know that the two players you mentioned with regards to Dortmund, Carney Chukwuemeka, Dortmund interested in the player, deal worth around £24 million, was on their loan last season. Medical happened yesterday, so that's just a matter of time before we get confirmation on that one. And we know that Aaron Anselmino potentially heading on loan as well. We believe he travelled today, so he'll be travelling over there today. And should those three deals happen, that would take Chelsea's player sales this summer to around £270 million, which goes back to what I keep saying. I'm sure that Chelsea have a business plan in place that is, we buy these players to make money and we buy these players to go in our first team. And they're very, very clever at selling players and generating cash. You look at some sides that really struggle to make money from player sales, and Arsenal and Manchester United being two of them. Chelsea are one of those sides that are generating huge levels of income and profit in selling players on.
And Mark, would you expect Chelsea to press ahead quickly with the signings of Alejandro Garnacho and Xavi Simons if they're able to sanction some of these sales? And we've seen Chukwuemeka potentially going for less money than what Chelsea originally wanted. They wanted around 40 million. They're going to get around 25 million. So already we're seeing some compromises being made to try and allow them to go back into the market again.
Ultimately, you can only sell a player for what someone is willing to pay. And if you want the desire to get rid of the player quickly because you need the cash, but only this is the option on the table, then sometimes you're just going to have to accept it. I'm really intrigued as to what happens with the Alejandro Garnacho situation and the Xavi Simons situation. Garnacho wants Chelsea. Manchester United wants to get rid of the player. Chelsea want the player. Manchester United's value is around 50 million, which is what other Premier League wingers have gone for in this summer, around £50 million. Chelsea value the player at between 25 and 30. What happens? Do they meet in the middle? Do Chelsea get their way? Do Manchester United hold firm on the valuation? That's a definite one to watch. And the same with Xavi, a player that's been linked with the Premier League a number of times over the course of the last few years. Someone with huge potential. Kevin, you watch him a lot, probably not fulfilled it in the way that many at Leipzig expected, but could be the move to the Premier League. Could that be the answer for him? Could this be the club that just feels like the right fit? Could they get the best out of this player who's been around for a long time, but never quite hit the consistent heights that I think people expected him to?
He's delivered goals and assists. That part's fine. Again, at the weekend, he was part of a team that lost 6-0 at Bayern. They were absolutely hammered. His defensive effort was seriously lacking. Body language wasn't great. He got hammered in the German media for that. And Marcel Schäfer, who's the sporting director at RB Leipzig, said afterwards, look, the situation hasn't changed. We don't block players. We're not going to stop him leaving, but it has to work for us, sporting-wise and financially. And at the moment, that isn't happening. They've got their fee, which is believed to be around €70 million. They don't want to budge from that.
I don't think Chelsea would be able to get to that price unless there is a big mammoth sale like Nicholas Jackson or something like that. So, let's 7 days to go and anything's possible. And that's what you have to caveat any conversation at the moment with, because this window has been so unpredictable that anything is still possible.
As Mark says, 7 days to go, 1 week left of this transfer window. In case you needed a reminder, two players who could still move in the remaining days of this transfer window, Mark Guehi and Guehi and Wissa. Mark, we saw Mark Guehi start again for Crystal Palace yesterday. Has there been any movement on that situation?
He's the captain of Crystal Palace and has been the captain there for a really successful couple of seasons there. I think it shows a lot about his attitude and his respect for the Crystal Palace fans, the fact that he is continuing to play despite the speculation about his future. We know that Liverpool like the player, and there has been, over the course of the summer, talks between Liverpool and Crystal Palace about a potential deal. But again, Palace have a valuation of their captain, their skipper, their leader, someone who is hugely important to that side in a team that is a little bit threadbare in places, and there has been a lot of departures. And of course, Liverpool will only move if they sense a market opportunity. The key thing for Guehi is he wants to play week in, week out between now and the summer because there is a World Cup next year. Game time is key. Is he going to get guaranteed game time if he goes to Liverpool? Absolutely not, depending on the players that may be ahead of him. He's going to have to earn the shirt in that Liverpool 11. So that's one player to keep an eye on, and a situation that I think might go right to the wire. And it just depends on who tests Steve Parish and Mark Guehi himself with a potential offer.
I'll be there on deadline day, so it could be a late finish for me, though. The deadline is now 7 p.m. on Monday, so there may be a late deal sheet as well. In terms of Oliver Glasner, Kevin, we spoke earlier about him and how he's been at other clubs when it comes to maybe not being backed in the transfer window, not being given the funds. Can Crystal Palace afford to let Mark Guehi go if they're to appease one of the best managers in the world right now?
The issue's going to be letting him go without a replacement lined up. And if it does go right to the wire, are they going to have time to bring somebody in? This is the issue. I think he's realistic enough to know guys like Eze and Guehi were going to go. The problem is he doesn't feel they've been snappy enough in bringing players in to replace them.
You said they've been passive in this transfer window.
Yeah, and they've got this situation now. And I understand that there was, they were unsettled by their Conference League versus Europa League. But I think he feels they could have been more active in the market. And if Guehi goes, I think he'll understand that. He knows how the food chain works. But if they haven't got anybody to replace him, I imagine that will infuriate him.
OK, Mark, with 1 week left to go of this transfer window, it looks like Newcastle are still yet to bring in a recognised striker. Probably be Anthony Gordon through the middle tonight in the Monday Night Football. How close are we getting to Guehi and Wissa joining the club? Or has there been no movement, despite the fact he wasn't involved again at the weekend for Brentford?
Yeah, I think that there's two sort of situations at play here. There's the Guehi and Wissa situation with Brentford, and he's sort of expressed his frustration at not being allowed to leave. He wants to play Champions League football. At the age he is, he feels like this is a great opportunity. He wants to go to Newcastle United. However, Brentford have a valuation of the player. He has 1 year plus a club option, second year on his contract, so they still hold the cards in this regard. We know that there was a rejected offer from Brentford around £40 million from Newcastle last week. There's been no further development at this stage on that particular deal. Is it dead? No. Is it progressing? No. It's just in an impasse at the moment where I guess really the focus for Newcastle is, look, let's go and play tonight. Let's go and beat Liverpool. Let's go and get some points on the board. And then we can assess where we are for the last 6 days of the window as they look to strengthen in attack.
OK, we wait to see what happens with those two players. Still to come, will Tottenham find a new number 10 in time before the window closes? Plus, Fulham boss Marco Silva tells the club they must sign at least 3 players between now and Monday night. Stay with us. Hi there, welcome back. Time now for our transfer update. Alexander Isak will not be in Newcastle United squad for Monday Night Football's clash with Liverpool, who are still trying to sign him. Newcastle remain keen to sign Brentford's Guehi and Wissa, who is not involved in the win against Aston Villa. Manchester United are advancing in talks over a £17.3 million deal for Royal Antwerp goalkeeper Sen Lammens. Rasmus Højlund was left out of United's squad once again to face Fulham yesterday amid a potential move to Napoli. Fulham, Crystal Palace and West Ham United are interested in signing Chelsea's Raheem Sterling before the deadline. Tottenham remain interested in Monaco attacking midfielder Magnez Akliouche and Como's Nico Paz as they look to sign a number 10 and a winger before the deadline. Roma are interested in Liverpool's Kostas Tsimikas if they lose left-back Angelino. Leeds United have agreed a deal with Leicester City for James Justin and are interested in Bournemouth defender James Hill. And Bilal Al-Khanous was left out of Leicester's squad on Saturday amid talks over a potential move to Crystal Palace. Don't forget you can keep across all the latest information as it happens on our dedicated Transfer Centre blog. Just scan the QR code, which is on your screen right now. Now, Tottenham may have won on Saturday, but before that, they missed out on signing Iber Eze, who joined Arsenal. They are now trying to find an alternative. Mark, would you be confident, and Spurs fans will be hoping the answer is yes, that Spurs will sign a number 10 between now and Monday night?
I think they will sign a player, but who that number 10 will be, we don't know. We know that they're in the market for a centre-back, probably a younger profile that can go in and compete and and provide a little bit of strength in depth. We know that they want a winger, and crucially, we know that they're in the market for a 10 as they got so close to Eze. The names that are on that list: Nico Paz from Como, young 20-year-old attacking midfielder who could fulfil that role. Magnus Akliouche as well, interest there in the Monaco man, and Savinho at Manchester City, although the Savinho one feels more like a social media transfer. There's a lot of noise online, but actually our information is not suggesting that one is
He's injured at the moment as well, isn't he?
Yeah, as people are suggesting, with offers and club-to-club communication and so on and so forth. So they do have a list of potential targets. I think they will get players over the line. I think the way they started the season, the way that Thomas Frank is, who I absolutely adore, I think he's a charming, talented manager that will convince players to come and be a part of what they're building there. He'll create the right culture at that football club, and I think they could be one of those sides that could have an exceptional season off the back of what Ange did last season. So yeah, they will get players, whether it's 2 or 3, and what targets they'll be able to get over the line, we don't know, but there's no question they will strengthen what they want to do.
And Kevin, in terms of Nico Paz, it's been widely reported that Spurs have had a bid rejected by Como. He was the man of the match yesterday, scored a free kick, got an assist as well. But there's a Real Madrid factor which may complicate things potentially?
Yeah, there is, because they have, when they let him go, they retained a buyback option, so they have that ability to go in and bring him in, and he certainly developed so well at Como. As you say, he scored a brilliant free kick against Lazio, played really well. What I like about him is he can play multiple roles in midfield. He's very aware tactically. He's happy to do the defensive work as well. He's come on leaps and bounds under Cesc Fabregas. So he's a player that's exciting. It's interesting you mentioned Akliouche. I love that kid. I think he's brilliant.
Do you know what's funny? Someone's just messaged me whilst I was talking about him, and he said, and this is a sporting director who's operated at the highest level, he says, Akliouche is world-class, Marky. And that's exactly what you just said.
He's top. He is so imaginative, technically gifted. The only concern would be the physicality of the Premier League and the pace of it. Would it take him a while to adjust? But talent-wise, off the scale. Leverkusen looked at him very, very strongly. I think they realised that was a deal financially they couldn't necessarily do, so they haven't been able to push that through, and they went for Echeverri instead at Man City. But I think the sky's the limit for Akliouche. I think he's a brilliant player.
What would he offer? Because he's more of a winger, whereas Paz can play across a number of different positions.
Yeah, I think they do play in different ways, and Paz comes from a deeper place a lot of the time. But I think Akliouche, yeah, he plays that wide role, he plays that 10. He is more attack-minded, maybe. Paz is maybe more of an all-round performer, but still very good going forward. But I think Akliouche is just one of those players that you watch, and there's real joy in watching him. Whether that'll translate to regular numbers in the Premier League, we'll see. But he's a fabulous player to watch. OK, we wait to see if Spurs do sign those 2 or 3 players. Let's get to Fulham, because they've brought in only 1 player this transfer window. Head coach Marco Silva couldn't hide his disappointment with the lack of activity after Fulham's 1-1 draw with Manchester United, and said it's crucial some bodies are added to the squad this week.
We need players. We haven't signed one single player. We signed one second goalkeeper or one goalkeeper to fight with Ben Leno for the spot in the goalie. But after that, we lost 2 wingers. We lost 1 striker. Let's see what is going to happen with one of our midfielders as well. And we have to sign. I think we don't have other solutions. Of course, the plan didn't go through until now. The plan that we set and put on the table last May. We have now 8-9 days to correct some things and to try to do our best, definitely, to sign. We need to sign at least 3 players until the end of the market. And the things cannot be related. Okay, we perform well. I think the players, they showed a great reaction. We all should be proud. Our fans, they were fantastic as well. But Premier League is much more than that. We are going to have a lot of games. We are going to have injuries. We are to have many things that they are involved in at the level that we are playing. And in some positions, we are short. Simple as that.
So 3 players Marco Silva wants to sign between now and Monday evening. Are Fulham getting any closer to signing anyone? And do you feel some sort of sympathy towards Marco Silva? Because it feels like this is the case every single summer. They're very busy on deadline day, but it gives him plenty of work to do at the start of the season when he's not got the options which he wants. Yeah,
Fulham are one of those sides in that sort of middle rung of Premier League clubs that have really struggled to get deals over the line and strengthen. And ultimately they have to wait for the business to be done at the top end, which then frees up players potentially to shuffle down the Premier League or to come across from Europe. Sides that have been promoted have been really active and busy, but Fulham, one of those sides, really frustrated. I feel like I've been a broken record in this situation. I've been talking about Kevin at Shakhtar Donetsk for some time. They are interested in the player. He joined from Palmeiras in January 2024, so for around 10 million euros. So they've had their investment. They're probably going to triple that investment because it would have to be a sizable fee. He's the one that they're interested in. And like Marco Silva says, he wants 3 really because of the players that have departed from Craven Cottage. So they're going to have to get the skates on. I'd imagine them to get those 2 or 3 players over the line, but they're going to have to, get the checkbook out because this summer has been an extraordinary summer where prices have been hugely inflated. And for a side like Fulham that are quite creative with what they do and they run very sensibly and they're very careful with how they spend their money, they might just have to start splashing the cash a little bit. Otherwise, the manager's going to be unhappy.
OK, there is a huge Monday Night Football still to come to wrap up the Premier League weekend. Liverpool face Newcastle live on Sky Sports main event. There'll be one name on the mind of both sets of fans. We'll talk Alexander Isak when we return. Hi there, welcome back to Transfer Talk. An update on the goalkeeper situation at Manchester City. It's our understanding their intention is to keep Ederson beyond the deadline. He didn't play at the weekend. James Trafford started instead. However, there is strong interest from Galatasaray in signing Ederson. City are making contingency plans if he were to leave, and on their list is Gianluigi Donnarumma, and it's understood there has been initial contact between the two clubs. But with a little over a week to go in the window, there is no guarantee he joins City unless Ederson leaves. Kevin, what happened on Friday night in Paris? Because it feels like Donnarumma has said goodbye on social media, but he actually did it in person on Friday.
He did at the Parc des Princes after the game against Angers, and it was pretty emotional for him. He was in his civvies. It was really weird because obviously not that long ago he was winning the Champions League final and playing incredibly well. And actually not that long ago he was playing in the Club World Cup, wasn't he? But they brought in Lucas Chevalier. He's the undisputed number 1. Luis Enrique has been absolutely unequivocal about that, and it's clear that Donnarumma is on the move. But where? And so he's been very strongly linked with Manchester City. The Galatasaray thing is interesting because they're willing to spend money. They want a top-class goalkeeper. If they can't get Ederson, they've been linked with him. Would he want to go to the Turkish Super League? It is on the up at the moment. Galatasaray very ambitious, but there's a lot of moving parts to this, and it's not entirely clear where Donnarumma will go, but he will go.
It is remarkable to think a goalkeeper at that level, arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the world, doesn't effectively have a club at this moment in time with 1 week left of the transfer window. Do you expect him to definitely get a move then?
It'll be awkward if he doesn't, because he said goodbye to everyone, and Luis Enrique has made it quite clear he is not part of my plans. I really like him as a guy. He was brilliant in the Champions League, but I wanted a different profile of goalkeeper, so Chevalier absolutely is the number 1. Now, that'll impact the price, of course, because everybody knows that PSG want to sell. So there'll have to be a bit of movement there. But, yeah, I would expect him to go.
OK, all eyes will be on the Monday Night Football this evening. What a game in store. Newcastle hosting Liverpool. All of the talk surrounding Alexander Isak, who for now remains a Newcastle player. Mark, do you expect things to accelerate following tonight's game?
Yes, I think Newcastle will be active between now and deadline day next week. They do need to sign a striker. We know that Eddie Howe has said that they'd like to add strength and depth to that striking department. They're still trying to replace Callum Wilson, who, of course, is now at West Ham. And, of course, Alexander Isak not involved with the first-team squad as things stand, not going to be involved tonight. So this is absolutely an area of concern. I've said quite publicly, I think the work they've done in the window has been exceptional. But they just need that missing final piece to go in and play alongside Alexander Isak, which is what Eddie Howe would be hoping for. Or, to find replacements is almost impossible in this current market. All the big strikers have made their moves, so you're suddenly looking at other players that maybe not good enough. But I think there's going to be a huge week ahead for Eddie Howe, starting with tonight's game. Crucial to get off on the right foot at home this season because it's a hugely exciting campaign ahead with the Champions League back at St James's Park. So let's see how things develop. But I'm expecting Keith Downey to have a busy 7 days.
It's going to be incredible, isn't it? We're live from St James's Park. Later on this evening, Newcastle hosting Liverpool, and the Monday Night Football coverage starts from 6:30 on Sky Sports Premier League. Before we go, we've mentioned Donnarumma. Let's have a chat about potential moves in Europe. And there's an incredible move developing, or incredible situation developing, really, with Adrien Rabiot and Jonathan Rowe at Marseille. Two players involved in a fight. One's already gone. They're both on the transfer list, but it looks like Jonathan Rowe's already departed. Yeah,
absolutely explosive, this. This was not the weekend just gone, but the one before. And there was a dressing room altercation between Rabiot and Rowe, described by Pablo Longoria, the Marseille president, as extreme violence, which may have been over the top, but it was serious enough for them both to be transfer listed immediately. Rowe has gone to Bologna, so that deal's already been done. And Rabiot is a player that I'm sure lots of clubs will be interested in. Now, he's furious and has made that quite plain, and so is his mother, Veronique, who takes charge of all of his affairs. And they've said, well, he stayed and he rejected offers because he was committed to Marseille, and now they're trying to force him out. So they feel it's a big overreaction. And there is a school of thought, a cynical one, that because Marseille feel they can get some money for him this summer, maybe they're using this as an excuse to get him out of the door.
I want to know more about Veronique.
I mean, she is a force of nature. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if you look at over the years, you know, when he left PSG, every move that he's made, she's been at the forefront. She's been the one happy to call people out, happy to call coaches out, happy to defend her boy. And she's a divisive figure, but she backs him up in the way that many people think a mother should. So
I wasn't expecting a detailed answer there, but I got one. I tell you what, the Porto wonder kid, Rodrigo Mora, Saudi Arabia, is that going to happen?
It looks as though it's not. It looked as though it was going to. He was linked with a €70 million move to Al Ittihad. It seems there's been a disagreement about the fee. Porto happy to move him on if the price is right, but it would be a really significant move because he is a top talent.
Kevin, Cologne back in the Bundesliga and back with a bang, with arguably the image of the weekend in Europe.
I love this. Lukas Kwasniok, who's their coach, they were away from home, got the win at Mainz, and he wore the home kit. He wore the Köln home kit, and he said, I saw it, I really liked it, I love the badge, I love the kit, I'm going to keep doing it. So, a bit unusual, but it clearly worked as a bit of a flag for them because they got the win.
Now, one of the big talking points over the course of the weekend was Marcus Rashford. We've been waiting for this Barcelona first start for some time, but didn't quite go to plan.
No, it didn't. He started OK. He was on the left and Rafinha was in a more central area. Had a couple of good runs early on. But then Barcelona ended up 2-0 down at Levante. He got the hook and he wasn't part of that big comeback. Brilliant goal from Pedri to get them back into it. And then Lamine Yamal right at the end with an unbelievable cross that led to an own goal. So dug themselves out of trouble without Rashford in the team.
And Kevin, you mentioned it briefly there with the 6-0 victory for Bayern Munich. Harry Kane just keeps on scoring, keeps on breaking records.
He's got 8 Bundesliga hat-tricks in 64 games. So that's a hat-trick every 8 games since he's come into the Bundesliga. He was phenomenal, hat-trick in the second half. But Michael Olise lights out again. I think he was the best player in the Bundesliga last season. I think he's going to be the star for that club in the next few years. OK,
gentlemen, thank you very much for now. Don't worry, Good Morning Transfers is back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Rob Earnshaw will be with us in the studio. And Transfer Talk is back at the same time tomorrow at midday. And for a full roundup of the latest transfer news, catch the Transfer Show at 4 and at 7 o'clock. Now, we'll continue to bring you the latest transfer news as things develop throughout the day here on Sky Sports News. And coming up next, we're live to Brentford. We'll hear from Keith Andrews and we'll ask him about the future of Guehi and Wissa at the football club. Is he off to Newcastle? Find out next.